We've all heard that you can't hope to accomplish something unless you show up consistently. Hell, I've told you that myself. And it's true that you can't take action once and then be mad about the results you didn't get. But when it comes to habit change in particular, I think that inconsistency is actually the key to success. Sounds like a paradox, but thinking about it this way will make habit change so much more doable and so much easier for you. So that's what I'm going to unlock in this episode. Let's get into it. Welcome to Unfuck Your Brain. I'm your host, Cara Loewentheil, Master Certified Coach and founder of the School of New Feminist Thought. I'm here to help you turn down your anxiety, turn up your confidence, and create a life on your own terms, one that you're truly excited to live. Let's go. So we've all heard those rules about how long you have to do new habits for before they become effortless, right? 30 days, 60 days, 12 days, 90 days, exactly 27.3 days and not a moment before. A generation of people who are into self-development and brain hacking, I think, have been kind of brainwashed into thinking that in order to change a habit, you have to do it perfectly for some initial stretch of time, even though we're constantly being told different amounts of time. But what we all assume, regardless of the amount of time, is that the most important time period for habit change is the very beginning. We think that we need to establish good habits up front. And then eventually, once it's more ingrained, that's when we can afford to be a little flexible and miss a day here and there, and that won't be a big deal. So if we're trying to take more walks, we need to take a certain number of walks a week or a walk every day, and it has to be the exact amount of time we decided. And if we don't live up to that, then we failed. Or if we're trying to stop snapping at our spouse, we think that if we do snap, then our count starts back at 0 and it's not working. It's like an airplane at takeoff. We think we need the most power at the beginning to get us off the ground, and then later maybe we can afford to coast a little. If we take our walks perfectly for a year, then we can afford to be flexible and skip one. If we manage not to snap at our partners for a whole month, then if we slip up, we can get back on track. But here's the problem. This is a very black and white and perfectionistic way of thinking about habits. It seems to acknowledge that imperfection is okay, but that imperfection can't happen anytime soon. And I think it leads to us abandoning a lot of habit change work that could have succeeded if we had a more flexible approach. Because what happens when we're in this mindset is that if we skip a day or we lose momentum, we abandon the habit. So because we're in this mindset of like, I'm going to start over on Monday, I'll start again on February 1st, I'm going to start over next New Year, right? We're in this mindset where the habit only counts if we do it consistently and in a row. So if we don't go to the gym, or we skip a day of writing, or we skip a week of writing, or we use our phone too much a couple of days in a row, then we feel like it's all ruined. And we vow to start over, and maybe we do a few times, but eventually we give up. And our story about the habit and ourselves continues to focus on what we did not do or were unable to do. So sometimes we have a story about the habit itself. It's too hard. It's unrealistic. It takes too much time. I'm too busy to be able to do it. Or we have a story about ourselves. I don't have enough willpower. I don't have enough discipline. I have bad time management. I have a bad memory, etc. And that story, of course, makes it even more difficult to build the habit. So some of us have habits we've been resolving to implement or change every new year for decades, literally. But because we can't do it perfectly right out of the gate, we don't stick with it. And we don't shift our story about ourselves in a way that supports success. So maybe your story is that you've tried to quit smoking so many times, but you just can't. Or you've tried to exercise regularly for so many years, but you always fall off the wagon. We identify with the failure to do it perfectly, and we ignore any of the progress we ever made towards changing the behavior because we're just focused on any times we didn't do it. In our Greatest Hits episode last week, we talked about making sure that the why behind your resolution is about the actual thing, not about proving your worth or value to yourself. Let's say your resolution is you want to go to dance class every week. If the goal of that is to prove that you're a good, disciplined person, then yeah, if you don't go every week, the resolution isn't worth doing because the whole purpose of the resolution is simply the symbolic value of the consistency. But if you want to go to dance class because it feels good and you enjoy it, it actually doesn't matter if you truly go every single week. But the problem is you've been taught that adherence to a new habit or routine is inherently moral in and of itself. And that leads to this fetishization of consistency. And that ruins a lot of changes that would be good for you, that you just aren't going to always be able to do consistently, but that would still do you lots of good if you just did them inconsistently. So there's a better way to think about habit change, and all it requires is completely flipping this paradigm on its head. Instead of going for consistency, we are going to go for inconsistency. And I'm going to teach you how to do this and why it works right after this break. Your resolutions don't require discipline or willpower. What they require is understanding how to set a resolution that actually motivates you and how to change your thoughts to create the actions that will make your resolution come true. If you want to learn exactly how to choose a resolution that will naturally motivate you and change your thoughts so that you're able to take the actions that you want in 2025, possibly for the first time ever succeeding at your resolutions, I want to invite you to join the Feminist Self-Help Society before the end of the year. Because right now, the price we're offering is the lowest it will ever be because we are raising the price for new members in January. And when you join before December 31st, you'll get access to our How to Make and Keep Your Resolutions mini course, complete with a brand new set of audio lessons and a workbook on something called the 3C process, which helps you learn from and grow from any stumbles or mistakes along the way and get better at your resolution instead of giving up and waiting another 11 months to vow to change all over again. I hate that cycle and I don't want that for you. And don't worry, if you're listening to this, you're already a member, you get to keep your low rate as long as you stay too. Go to unfuckyourbrain.com/resolutions to join, or text your email to +1 347 997 1784. The code word is resolutions, and we'll send you everything you need to join. Okay, so we've established the problem with fetishizing consistency and making it the key to habit change. If that works for you, then great, but I truly believe so many people are missing out on improving their lives because they've been told that if they can't do it consistently at first for some pure, perfect first stretch amount of time, then the habit won't stick. And that leads to them abandoning so many efforts that would still improve their lives over time and would eventually build into consistent habits. So what is the alternative? The alternative is to embrace inconsistency. An inconsistent habit done over a long period of time will still bring you big benefits and can still become habitual. If you go to dance class once a week for a month and then you fall off the wagon, you went to dance class 4 times and then you don't go anymore. If you fail to go 3/4 of the time, right? The vast majority. If you are only doing the habit 25% of the time, but you are okay with that and you keep doing it for 12 months, now you went to dance class 12 times. Now it is habitual to go to dance class once a month when you started the year, it wasn't habitual to go at all. You had a dozen experiences of moving your body, experiencing joy, doing an activity that is scientifically proven to help with mood and even depression, and you made each month a bit better for yourself. And now once a month is your default floor. So if you want to increase the habit even more, now you're starting from having a habit of going once a month instead of 0. When you embrace inconsistency, you don't have all this pressure to do it perfectly right up front. And that makes the stakes so much lower and so much more realistic. It also has the advantage of aligning with how humans actually learn to form habits. Let's think about this. When do we learn most of our habits? As children. How do children learn things? Do we explain it to them and then they do it perfectly for 6 months and then loosen up? Do children learning new habits have 100% adherence immediately and then get more flexible as time goes on? These are leading questions because obviously no, it's the opposite. A child learning to walk or tie their shoes or brush their teeth or eat with utensils or clear their plate or say please and thank you or wash their hands after they pee every time or literally anything you ever learned to do habitually as a child, you built from inconsistency to consistency. Children do not do the thing when they are learning it consistently all the time. And their parents don't enforce the thing consistently all the time either. No parent can consistently enforce something all the time. Neither of those things is required for the child to eventually learn the habit. Because a child is allowed to move from inconsistency to and towards consistency. And good parenting, effective parenting, rewards any action toward that goal with positive feedback. But then we take the opposite approach with ourselves, demanding perfect consistency immediately and not even giving ourselves positive feedback when we do it, but yelling at ourselves when we don't. What I'm describing, getting to consistency by being tolerant of inconsistency at first, is actually how your brain works. When you're trying to make a habit habitual, you're trying to move it from the part of your brain where you have to consciously talk yourself through doing it and use a lot of mental energy and be really present to do it, to the part of your brain where you can do it unconsciously, right? I've used driving as an example of this before. When you first learn to drive, you really have to focus on it all the time. As you get better and better at it, it becomes a kind of skill or a practice that you can do unconsciously. That's why you can have a conversation, listen to a podcast, whatever, and still get where you're going safely. When you are making a habit unconsciously habitual in this way, your brain is learning to make that thing, that sequence of actions, energy efficient by doing it enough times that it can become an automatic process that your unconscious brain can take over. So that is a learning process that will inherently move from inconsistent compliance, repetition, performance with errors, with flaws, with missing some, with skipping, to more consistent as time goes on, because each time it becomes less novel, more efficient, and more able to be formed unconsciously. Okay, so now I can imagine all your type A brains, who I love, I have a type A brain too, raising your hand to say, okay, but like how consistent can I be? Is it okay to skip once a month, once a week, once a year? I want to tell you that I don't think that's a useful question to ask. I want to challenge you to decide that any amount of inconsistency is okay. Any amount of minimal effort counts, and any amount of inconsistency is okay. And I know that your brain says that means that you just won't do it at all. But we're talking about habits that you won't do at all anyway if you don't try this approach, right? Your brain wants to think that one of the options is to just do it perfectly, like you should in your brain. That's an illusion. That's not really one of the options. If you are having success with perfect consistency when you set a goal or start a habit, you don't need to be listening to this podcast. If you're listening, it's because you have not been able to carry out resolutions or habits or goals perfectly. Instead, you have done it some and then given up. So I want to suggest you adopt the belief that when you are changing a habit or trying to create a new one, any amount of inconsistency is okay because you will always come back to it. That's where this identity shift comes in. Remember when I talked about how if we have the identity of I can never stick to it, then that's what we make come true. When we build an identity of I do it inconsistently, but I always come back, that's what will happen. I don't even like the phrase start again because that kind of implies like a new start where now we are going to do it perfectly and go on that way. It's not stop and start. It's not fail and then start again and now do it perfectly. I'm talking about making the goal being to take this new action inconsistently. Rather than tell yourself, I need to do this perfectly, your thought is, I'm going to do this until either I hit the goal, if it's a specific goal target, or forever, if it's a habit you want to adopt for the rest of your life. I'm going to make an offer on social media inconsistently until I hit my revenue goal. Or I'm going to be taking walks inconsistently for the rest of my life. When you embrace inconsistency, there is no pressure. There's no way to fail as long as you don't decide to abandon it forever. So this is a subtle kind of mindset element, but we know here mindset makes all the difference. When we're fetishizing consistency, we're wanting our actions to give us permission to think a certain thought. If I go to dance class every week, then I can think of myself as someone who dances regularly. But it's a vicious cycle where we keep the thought that we're not consistent at it, and that makes us show up inconsistently, and then we give up. If you change your thought to, I'm someone who goes to dance class, going inconsistently is not a conflict with that thought. It's true. Even if you go inconsistently, you are someone who goes to dance class. You have a thought that supports you going without requiring you to do it perfectly. And that gives you flexibility to come back to it whenever you've stopped or dropped off or missed some. You can also try a latter thought like, I'm becoming someone who goes to dance class. I'm practicing being someone who goes to dance class. Those thoughts also make room for inconsistency and don't demand perfection. The big mindset shift here is that you are focusing on being someone who does a thing, either until the goal is achieved or in a non-time limited way for habit. It's not about doing it consistently, doing it a certain amount, doing it a certain amount of time. Traditional habit change approaches associate the value with the consistency. But this approach is about the journey and the actual value the activity adds to your life. So when you stop or fall off and you notice that, you just say to yourself, that's okay, I'm going to do it again. That's it. Not, I'm going to get it right this time. I'm going to do it perfectly this time. I'm starting over. None of that. I'm just going to do it again. I've made some habit changes for health reasons over the past few months using this approach, and it has been a game changer. So for instance, because I'm 43 and life is exciting at this age, I've been trying to eat more fiber. And it was easy to make the perfect plans to do this, right? I could plan out what a perfect fiber-full day would look like, but in reality, it took trial and error. I had to figure out which foods with fiber I actually liked and could find and would prepare. I had to figure out when in the day it was easiest for me to eat it and how I felt when I distributed it in different ways across the day. I had to do it all enough times so that it became more automatic when I'm thinking about what to eat. And maybe some people would have used like a spreadsheet and data collection and analysis for this, but that's just not how I roll. I just kept making an effort. And often at the beginning, I didn't hit my goal. And in the beginning, I also forgot to even think about it for days on end several times. But when I remembered, or when the busy weekend was over, at the next meal, the next day, the next week, whatever, I just did it again. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't vow to do better, right? I didn't tell myself I'd screwed up. I didn't make a new perfect plan. I just was like, oh, whoops, I forgot to think about this for 6 days. Gonna think about it tomorrow, though. What can I do tomorrow? I did not start out strong and then loosen up. I started out extremely inconsistently. And now, several months later, it's pretty automatic. But I started out uber flexible. I started out not doing it way more often than I did it. And now it's become natural to do it almost all the time. I want you to achieve your goals and impress yourself with who you can become in 2025. But I want you to do it not by pretending that suddenly January 1st, you will have the skills and discipline to do a new thing perfectly, which really makes no sense when you think about it. I want you to do it by embracing inconsistency. Be willing to build up to consistency rather than pretending it's reasonable to expect it of yourself right off the bat. This is hard because of all the programming we've gotten about what is wrong with us if we can't do things perfectly right away, which infects the way we think about goals and resolutions. The perfectionism twists this process into something to use to prove our worth or beat ourselves up. So it's absolutely imperative that when you adopt this inconsistent approach, you are also doing that thought work to change your thinking so you can make those 2 crucial mental shifts. Number 1, knowing why you're making a resolution or a goal, checking that the purpose of it aligns with your values like we talked about last week. And 2, getting comfortable with imperfection and inconsistency so you can actually build a sustainable habit that lasts. We are working on those 2 principles all through December and January in the Feminist Self-Help Society, where our tradition is that every year, if you join in December, or if you're in the society in December, you get to access our exclusive mini course on how to set and achieve your resolutions. And every year I add brand new cutting edge trainings to it based on whatever I've learned in my own growth during that year. So we've now opened up that promotion again. So when you join the society right now, you get access to this mini course, and it will teach you how to pick a resolution that is actually about growing and evolving for yourself, not trying to conform to harmful social standards better. And it will teach you how to use your values to guide those resolutions and set your goals. And then it will teach you how to plan and execute on them. This year, it includes some brand new teaching around over-responsibility and how to watch for that showing up in your resolutions. And it also includes a brand new process and workbook that I created this year for learning from the times that you don't execute perfectly and how to make those stumbles just part of the learning process instead of derailing you. So even when we're aiming for inconsistency and there's nothing wrong with the times we don't do it, we can still analyze them sometimes and learn in order to set ourselves up better for success the next time. So I've created this process called the 3C process, and I am teaching that in this bonus mini course on resolutions. That's the only place to learn it. This process teaches you exactly how to recover if you do stumble and how to get even better at your goal or habit in the process. And listen, it's been a year. So if you've decided you're not doing resolutions this year, I wouldn't blame you. But it is actually still the best time to join the society anyway, if you've been thinking about it, because in January, we are finally raising the price for new members. If If you're a current member listening to this, do not worry. You keep your price forever as long as you stay in, continuously. But the society has cost the same since I started it almost a decade ago. And it's now about 10 times as effective and powerful and full-featured as it was back then. Used to be minimalist, and now it is everything you need to change your life. So in January, we are raising the price for all new members. But if you're already a member, or if you join in December, you get to keep our current price for as long as you stay. And it's a significant difference. So whatever 2025 brings, whether it's a year where you want to blow your mind with achieving a new impossible goal, or it's a year where you want to learn how to create more emotional stability and resilience when times are tough, either way, in the society, you will have the skills and support you need. We are taught to go it alone and that we should be able to figure everything else out by ourselves. And the truth is, that's just not how humans learn. It's not how humans grow. It's unreasonable to expect that of yourself. Come join us in the society and let us teach you how to become that person you want to be. You can go to unfuckyourbrain.com/society to join us, or text your email to +1 347 934 8861. No code word necessary. We will send you the link right away. So you want to join in December so you get that resolutions mini course with the brand new teaching this year, and you get to lock in our lowest price, the lowest the society will ever be again before it goes up in January. I can't wait to spend 2025 with all y'all teaching you how to become that person you've always wanted to be. She's much closer, or he's much closer, or they're much closer than you think. If you're loving what you're learning on the podcast, you have got to come check out the Feminist Self-Help Society. It's our newly revamped community and classroom where you get individual help to better apply these concepts to your life, along with a library of next-level, blow-your-mind coaching tools and concepts that I just can't fit in a podcast episode. It's also where you can hang out, get coached, and nerd out about all things thought work and feminist mindset with other podcast listeners just like you and me. It's my favorite place on earth, and it will change your life, I guarantee it. Come join us at www.unfuckyourbrain.com/society. I can't wait to see you there.